So I just confirmed that the voice is getting a little bit better. So I'm glad that it got fixed. Uh, and now, by the way, when I was checking the first video, I noticed this crack in my teeth. I told you about this before. I told you about how clumsy I was when. Uh, when I was a kid. So that's how I felt. That's how I broke my teeth. I do not remember actually showing you how it looks like, but yeah, this is how my teeth look like. I got it fixed probably twice, and when the second one fell down, I didn't really care about doing it again. It's not that I hate myself. I think it doesn't really hurt my appearance. People do talk to me plenty. Uh, talk to me, actually talk me into getting me fixed. Actually, no, a dentist. We have a dentist. We have a dentist acquaintance of us, and she saw my teeth and she was like, "Why don't you get it fixed?" And I remember that I told her that I do not want it fixed. Just plain, I don't know that. I told her that I don't care. Really, I don't care. I actually got plenty of problems in my teeth and my molars and premolars. So it's not really my greatest concern. So the topic I actually wanted to talk to you about, try getting this a little bit down, so you can see my hands. I talk very often with my hands, so I'd love you to see my body language. Of course, I'd love you to see my entire body, but yeah, that's the best I can do right now. Uh, so what I wanted to talk to you about was my professor who got me in, who filed a complaint against me. That was a year ago. It was exactly on the end of July, beginning of August 2025. And I remember it vividly because it was in our rheumatology clinical rounds. And these rounds were during the summer vacation or the pseudo summer vacation. We should have been having our own summer vacation, but we didn't really because that's how they managed to make med school 5 years. They just squeeze squeeze 1 year. That was the year, and it was getting very stressful. It was getting very strenuous, very anstrengend in Deutsch. That's how they say stressful. Uh, but it's not really an excuse as to why one student will do such misconduct. I don't really consider it misconduct, but it was an imminent uh, something that would have certainly happened given the circumstances, right? That's how I put it. Now, what happened was that one student, or probably a bunch of students, get to talk to a patient, and the patient tells them about the disease story, how the disease evolved, how it started, and what they did then, what they did after. Right. And I remember the patient very clearly. Uh, he was a rheumatoid arthritis case. He had uh, hand involvement. His hands were involved in the disease. and his niece as well were involved. I remember this very vividly because the younger professors have been helping us in this case. They helped us they guided us through the questions. They made us understand the case, and this is very unusual of the professors, of the younger professors, right? They often just let you deal with the patient your way, your style, and then when the professor digs you down, that's what should have happened anyways, right? But this case was different. The younger professors or the younger teachers actually guided us through this, and they would often give us certain hints that, you know, this specific professor doesn't like it this way, this specific professor would like it that way. So they were trying to brace us or brace whoever is going to reason this case to this professor. But I didn't really uh, catch the hint, right? The clinical case was written in my colleague's notebook, but even then, I was the one who got called to present it. Actually, my colleague just chickened out, and then I was the one supposed to, you know, swallow my pride and get on the stage, right? And that's what happened. I got on the. It wasn't really a stage. I was just standing next to the professor. The professor was sitting actually, and I was standing facing the audience, right? The class, the entire class, and I was standing. So I was standing here. The professor was sitting right there, and he had the large table. I do remember the scenery very clearly because that these moments when you really get stressed out, you do remember often the scenery very well. You remember it very clearly, and that's what I actually do. Right, so I was standing right there. The professor was sitting here in front of a large, very large table. Not actually very suitable to the size of the classroom or the hall, right? The whole, it would be very difficult actually to pass between that table, right? Because it's not only the table then has the chairs in front of you, so it you can only fit, one person can only pass through. Right, let me just try to explain this to you. So um, so right, so these are the chairs basically. You can see that these are the chairs, right? That was the first row of the chairs, okay? And in front of them is okay, or in front of here, right? In front of them is the table of the professor, right? And the professor is sitting behind the table, right? And that is how narrow it is to cross. So this is a very small detail, but it will help you understand what happened at the end. Let me just show you how tight it is here. Right, so it's a very narrow passage. You can consider it a straight of harmless thing. Only one person can stand in this tight space at a given time. Right. So just to go through the boring details, the professor is very investigative of me, even though there is an entire class in front of him. He only asks me the questions that are related to the case. So he doesn't necessarily ask me questions about how I took the case. The questions are to get it clearer to you, to get it more understandable to you. Is the sort of questions that are just theoretical questions, and uh, the way he's asking them is in an investigative manner, right? He's not asking looking for an answer. He's asking looking to get me humbled or something. I'm not exactly clear about why he's done that. There is an audience in front of him, and he can expect answers from them, but he does not. He asks a question facing the audience and then looks at me, right? And that was a bit of a stressful thing. I'm not known for being the most knowledgeable student. I think I am pretty average in my own knowledge, and I tend to respond with very generic, very basic answers, nothing that is too exceptional. And he did catch this during our own interactions, and yet he kept doing this. He kept getting harder and harder and kept pushing through. And even when I tried to come up with good hypotheses, he wouldn't really like that. And he kept on doing this, right? A normal professor would just catch onto this. He would notice that I'm just a really basic student who's gotten stuck in this position in front of him, and he would just cut me some slack. But he didn't. He kept getting harder and harder, and I eventually got to a point where I told him in English, I don't know. I told him, I don't know. In this tone, in this voice. And to be honest, he was very great at not getting pissed off, but he was the passive aggressive kind. He would get more aggressive, but not active, not using words. He would do this using questions, using uh, body language. It's very combative in nature, very aggressive in nature, and one that would push me down a slippery slope that would get me eventually filed. That was eventually what happened, right? And in the medical process, what happens after you interview the patient, get to know their complaints and all this, you go forward to a further step in the clinical diagnosis, which is a clinical examination that is doing the tests, inspecting and evaluating the complaint using objective findings on the patient. And after this, of course, there are the lab reports and the radiologic assessment, the x-rays, and all of these things. And then came the part where I had to do the next step, which was the clinical assessment or the clinical exam, which I really did not know. Again, I'm a very basic student. I know little to nothing, and honestly, I don't really want to get myself involved with this professor. So again, I told him I don't know, and he wasn't taking this for an answer. Actually, he forced me to do a clinical exam on the patient. I told him no, I won't, and then he got on from his chair and he pushed me towards the patient. I want to paint the picture so that it's clear to you. So remember the former picture I've drawn to you? I'll try to do this again. Maybe this time in a better way so that you can see. Right. So this was the table. right, and the professor sitting here. Okay, I was standing right there, and opposite to me was the bed of the patient. The patient was sitting in that bed. Right, I hope it's clear. Right, right. So that's the professor. That's me next to him, and that's the bed. And after the bed comes the chairs of the students, right? You know, these college chairs, right? So you can see, and then the whole door, the door where I can actually exit, is right there. So for me to get out of there, I need to pass through the professor and get out of here, right? I need to pass through this hole, through this, through this thing. Okay, which is tight. This is not drawn to scale, to be very frankly honest. And what happens is that he gets on there, he gets up and gets close to me, pushes me towards the patient, and then forces me to do a clinical exam. I tell him that I do not know it again, and I don't know how to do the clinical assessment. And what he does next is tell me, try to do something, and that I don't know. So he just lets me to one side, doesn't do anything actually, but calls another student and makes him do the thing, right? Instead of actually showing me how it's done, he gets another student, and another student is quite a good student actually. I'd say he's an average to above average, but he managed to perform the clinical exam well. And this is 17 minutes. What happens next is that I just figure out that there's really not more value to this. It's just embarrassment, degradation, and really no eminent value whatsoever. So I just think that my best shot is just leaving and letting this guy rot. People were actually leaving the hole as they saw it getting just only lamer and more disrespectful. And that's what I did. I also left. The way I left was that I told him, so professor, do you think that if someone is not well prepared that he should leave? And he told me yes, he should, in a very aggressive manner again. So I told him, well, okay, then may I leave? And just went forward to leaving. He told me, yes, of course you can. And then he tries to push me another time, and I was already charged for the first time, so I didn't really push him, but I put my hand between. He was basically pushing me from my back, right, towards the door, okay, in this narrow hallway, okay. So he did all that, and I just put my hand between his back, between my back and his hand that was going to push me. So I just kind of, made a barrier between it. It doesn't really count as pushing, but I do believe that I've utilized a bit of force just to shield myself from him, okay? Which counts as a physical effort. You could call it pushing. I don't really care, but I just didn't let him push me this time. And he got very mad. He asked me twice, what is your candidate number? Twice. I didn't really tell him because I already had given him my back, right? So I was leaving. He was standing in that narrow hallway, and I'd already passed him. And yeah, he asked me twice, and when he didn't, he managed to talk to the younger professors and get my roll number or my candidate number out of them. And yeah, then he did the whole thing. He made me, he made me unattended that day. He crossed over my attendance. He also filed a complaint against me that I spent a good amount just trying to get it crossed out from my records. Uh, but it's another story for another day, obviously. This is getting longer. I actually thought it would be around 5 minutes, but it is around 20 minutes now. It's 24 minutes. You can listen to this in bits. I don't really care. But I thought I'd do something to something other than what I would have been doing right now. Which I don't know. I've probably been just watching something or something other than studying. But I do believe this exercise is an interesting exercise. I get to tell you more about an incident that happened in a way that is better than otherwise just writing it in text. Gets boring and doesn't get my point that clearly. So yeah, I just thought of doing this. That's all.